Welcome, apparitions, amnesiacs, and ambassadors, to episode 502 of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on February 20th, 2024, and featuring Sarah Jane Smith, Ghost Town, written by Rupert Light and starring Elisabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith and Jez Fielder as Josh Townsend. I am Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and with me are color commentator Alex Fireheart
Hey,
and technical director Mad Matt Winchell.
Apparently, I'm still around. Hello.
How's everyone's week going?
not too bad. I finally got a. I mean, it kind of shows the how the system works, regardless of what country you're in. I
Work
finally
issues.
got to the. I finally got into the doctors for a appointment to get a referral to potentially get finally diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum.
Okay, also
And
not
it,
work issues.
and he was basically like you're basically gonna have to go to the state capital because
For fuck's sake.
if I refer
Sorry,
you to
YouTube.
someone if I refer you to someone locally, you'll probably be waiting a year. So, like at that point, why bother kind of a thing.
Right.
And like I think the quickest option was like, well, you can go to a psychologist first, and they'll basically be like, okay, yeah, and they'll give you a thing, and then you have to take that to a psychiatrist who'll be like, okay, tick the box, kind of a thing. But that
And they'll
being
refer
like,
you to a neurologist who will check another box.
um, with the idea being that that was more the option of like, if you have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm just like, fuck it, I'll just go to the state capital. So they referred me to someone for there. I think I've got to wait until tomorrow to actually like ring them to make sure they've got the referral, and then go from there to see what their waiting times are like. Because even the doctor was like, if the person I referred you to has like a year wait or something, like come back and see me again, and I'll refer you to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Meanwhile, my doppelganger here will give you an MRI. Might as well give you
um,
something while you were giving you the runaround.
but yeah, I'm just glad that I finally got the ball rolling on that, because
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where I kind of wish my parents had tried to get me diagnosed when I was a kid, but oh well. Um,
Yeah, I don't know about over there, but here getting diagnosed as a kid pretty much only happens if you have a school system that cares and notices that whatever diagnosis is causing you to perform poorly in school. Uh, so like I was somebody who performed well in school. They never can even consider testing me for autism. But if it caused my schoolwork to suffer, they would have tested me.
yeah, like a bunch of my nieces and nephews are on the spectrum in some way or another, or have like ADHD in that. So I'm like, well, it seems to run in the family, so I would not be very shocked. Um, yeah. Aside from that, that thing that I brought up last week, where like I had like swelling in my mouth that I realized was pushing against my back teeth on one
Hmm.
side of my mouth. The swelling has drastically gone down, so it doesn't hurt to eat anymore, or at least doesn't
Yay.
hurt as much. Unless like if something like goes into that part of my mouth, it'll set it off. But now it seems like I can just eat and drink, and it's like relatively fine, thankfully. So it's funny because like I meant to go to the doctor's like on Thursday last week, but I booked an appointment. As far as I can tell, I went through the whole process of like booking online.
Right.
Then I got in there, and they were like, "No, there's no appointment there." And I'm like, "Oh,
Oh,
great."
great.
So I just took a day off for nothing. Um, and wasn't able to get a medical certificate. So hopefully, my dad has said that like you can have up to like 3 days off in a row without one. So hopefully that,
Depends upon the job, but yeah, that's usually
you
a
know,
rule that they at least give you a day or two.
um, so I mean, it was annoying as hell having to work through that because the aircon makes it worse. So I've actively been sleeping with it off. Which summer has been hell here, so that's been fun. Um,
Oh, okay.
uh, and also it turned out that a job that I was potentially going to look at instead, I kind of flat out refuse to go for now because not only is it casual instead of full time, I have a deep-seated hatred of doing cover letters. And I would apparently have to do a cover letter for an entry-level cleaning job, and no,
Uh, uh, uh,
I'm not.
yeah, this is not that fancy of a job. F that.
Yeah.
If this was an office job, I could see that. This is nah.
Like anything above entry level, I'm like fair, but this is like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. This is a cleaning job. What the hell do you want? Seriously? Nah.
Yeah, I mean, entry level jobs that are competitive, I get. Like I've had jobs where it's like, okay, let me describe my internships and why they relate to this application I'm submitting. But for a cleaning job that's like I went to cleaning camp, like no. Like
I
there's
always
nothing
wanted
you
to be a
can
janitor.
there's nothing you can write in a cover letter that's not going to show up in your resume.
Yeah. And like basically, I've even seen some people say that like they don't even, some companies, or probably a lot, don't even read them. They just kind of file them away and never read them. So it's like, well, what's the fucking point then?
They have a name to organize it by on the front
uh,
cover.
because maybe 100 people want to apply for the job and only 50 are willing to write a cover letter, so they only have 50 to sift through instead of 100.
True. Probably part of it.
Yeah, that's about it for me, I think.
So on my end, I don't know if my chair has always been weird and I've just only been sitting on the front half and not noticed. But I've noticed lately that it's like the balance on my chair is weird, and if I sit all the way in it, it either leans toward my back left corner or the front right corner. And I don't know if I broke my chair or if it's always been this way. Uh, like it's not like the best chair; it's the one that came with the apartment. But like, I don't want to buy a new chair.
It sounds like you have to find some new, find a screwdriver and tighten those screws, or yeah, you might as well just start looking for another
It doesn't
chair.
even look like it's held by screws. I think it's like welded together, which again,
Oh,
I shouldn't have been able to do anything if it's welded together. So I
you
do
say
not
that.
understand why it looks that way.
You say that, but I've seen plenty of air quotes welded together chairs break pretty easily.
Otherwise, I've been pretty tired the past few days, and a lot of people I know have been calling out sick. So I think my body's been fighting off a cold of some sort.
Mm.
Other than being tired and just like I'm always like blowing my nose multiple times a day anyway. So it's when it's like that, it's just slightly more often than normal. Um, but yeah, that's the thing. Otherwise, I didn't put it under Geek Talk. I've been reading a little bit of Champions, and once again, it just reminds me that Marvel pisses me off with events. So it's like there are 6 or 7 issues in the trade paperback, and like the first 4 issues, they're actually starting. They set up a story. They're like building up, and then oh yeah, Marvel had a big event. This happens this happens to be set around the time that Captain America was in Hydra and they took over the country. So then the next 3 issues are just random shit about like Hydra taking over the US. And then the last issue is just like a normal standalone. And I'm just like, come on. Like, this seems to be the issue with every Marvel series that I try to pick up lately is that they'll start to tell a story. It'll get completely fucked up by whatever major thing is happening in Marvel. And then they'll never put the threads back together or they'll give it to another writer. And I'm just getting like, at least DC has the decency to be like, we're going to have a spin-off book of, Green Lantern versus Darkseid, so that the regular Green Lantern book at least is kind of normal, but Marvel doesn't do that. At least not that you could tell in their collections. This is also what got them in trouble in the 90s and caused them to go bankrupt and sell out to Disney. Do you want to go bankrupt and sell out to another Disney?
I don't think it'll be much of an improvement.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't even know if they particularly care that much at the moment because they're like, well, the money's coming from the movies now, so we can just do whatever we want.
Yeah, that's
Which you would think mean they'd rely on event comics less.
Actually, I would argue that the money comes from the merchandise, and the merchandise is at Ollie's right now.
The merchandise comes from the movies. Nobody's buying merchandise on the latest comic version of Sam Wilson. They're buying it because he appeared in Avengers or Captain America. Yeah.
If they're buying it. Again, it's in Ollie's these days. A lot of it.
Either way, like, I get that the film industry as a whole is in somewhat, I don't know if recession's the right term, but they're not in a great market right now. But it's still the comics themselves, not counting character rights, the comics themselves have been in a poor industry for years, probably decades at this point. So the money still, a lot more of it comes from the movies than from the comics.
Yeah. Especially while they're still making good money.
And a lot of that is bureaucratic bullshit that I am not going to get into because we'd still be here in half an hour.
So I guess that goes to my week. I just found out today that one of my coworkers got sick with something they've been struggling for a couple of days, and now it's become noticeable. So they got like the whole like nasty cold thing going on, and I'm like, oh, please don't spread. I'm still recovering. Please, love of God. Like, I can tell my my sinuses are trying to finish cleaning everything out and being just done with it. But the fact of the matter is that it's still mending, which means like, every once in a while, like 2 out of 4 cleans of the nose will come up with bloody gunk. But it's not all the time, which means it's getting better. It's just, again, taking its sweet time.
Speaking of which, I need to go ahead and set up that humidifier I bought so that I don't have that issue.
But outside of diseases, we've had a lot of call-ins this week to work. Don't know why. I think some people were under the assumption that the air quotes white glove thing was supposed to happen this week. Let me just say that I've been told that they're very wrong. Apparently it's happening next week. Whoops. And I guarantee you, if there's a bunch of call-ins that day, there might be also a bunch of firings. Because they're sick. I can already tell a lot of people are already sick and tired of it. Although I will say that I would assume at least a couple of them were legit sick, I believe, because a few of them have come back. Matter of fact, actually, one of them has come back this week that's been gone since I started. Because they had something that nasty that they literally couldn't make to work for like almost an entire month and a half. But it's nice to know they're in good condition now. That means we have a few more bodies. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I believe there was one day this last week we had at least 5 call-ins. It's like, How are we supposed to run anything?
Mm-hmm.
If you're all going to keep calling in like this all the dang time, we might as well just not have hired them.
Right.
Because
Like
it
that's
really does
also where
start to
you
feel
get
like there's only the same 4 or 5 people here.
Yep. Like that's where you get a business that then turns around and okay, now we hire an extra 4 people for every shift and then send 3+ people home every day so they have to come to work and then go home with no money, and that's not good either when that happens.
Well, funny enough, we had one day that didn't have a bunch of call-ins, and I was basically the extra wheel, but we found work for me to do anyways, so it doesn't really matter at that point. Because there's also no way you're sending me home early because that's a long road trip, and I need my hours. Promised full time. Trying to think if there's anything else. I did my birthday stuff with my extended family. 8 out of 5 guys.
Okay.
And I got a Amazon gift card, which I have now spent on 3 CDs and another little bit of extra goodies I got for my nephews while I was doing that.
Nice.
I got the entire trilogy set of Gunship coming to me. The first one came today. The next one should be coming tomorrow. And I think by the 27th, the third one is supposed to finally show up. So I'll be finally caught up with all of them on physical media and even have a digital copy and send those digital copies to my phone because my phone's my radio.
Right. Okay. Move on to tonight's show. We've got birthdays and news. A little bit lower on the news. Then we don't have any geek talk. So we have our episode summary, review, final thoughts, and ratings. Alex can take it away with the birthdays.
Yep. First up, we have an omission from last week. On the 4th of February, it was the birthday of our very own Mad Matt Winchell, who turned 39.
Hi, everybody.
I noticed it. I made a mental note after I saw it on Facebook, and then I tried to condense a month's worth of birthdays into a short list, and it completely slipped my mind last week.
It happens.
So,
I would also like to add
Happy
that
birthday.
Facebook still hit almost all of the birthday messages. Sorry to everyone who tried to say happy birthday on Facebook. I only got like 5 of you.
Well,
Also, I didn't realize, or I might have forgotten, you were only 3.5 years older than me, because you keep talking as if I'm like 5-10 years younger than you.
I'm an old man.
At our age, the difference is
I'm the
enough to
senior
count.
citizen here. I had prunes today.
Although you'll be the first one over the 40 hill of the 3 of us, so that's something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I spelled Simon Pegg wrong, apparently.
I noticed that too, and I corrected it on my end.
Speaking of which, onto the birthdays for this time. On the 14th of February, we had Simon Pegg, who played the editor in The Long Game, was the narrator of Doctor Who Confidential in Series 1, and also known for roles in Star Trek, Star Wars, and being in the live action... well, I say live action. For being in the theatrical movie for Hitchhiker's Guide, turned 54. Also on the 14th, we have Michael E. Bryant, who directed 6 Doctor Who serials from 71 to 77, turned 82. On the 16th of February, we have Christopher Eccleston, who was the Doctor in the first series of the revival, as well as now doing some Big Finish, turned 60. Also on the 16th, we have Jeremy Bulloch, who played Tor in the Space Museum, Hal in the Time Warrior, and is better known as the suit actor for Boba Fett in the original Star Wars trilogy. Would have been 79, but died in 2020 at the age of 75. Also on the 16th, we have Kevin Manser, who was a Dalek and Zarbi operator between 63 and 66. Would have been 95, but died in 2001 at the age of 72. On the 17th of February, we have Jack Montgomery, who played Jack Harkness in Adam, turned 32. And also on the 17th, we have Philip Latham, who played Lord President Barusa in The Five Doctors. Would have been 95, but died in 2020 at 91. On the 20th of February, we have Anjali Mahindra, who played Rani Chandra from 2008 to 2011, and also was a villain in what am I thinking of?
She was the Skithra Queen, and I
That's
think
it.
she was the leader of those damn it, the spheroid robots that hate Daleks.
Yeah.
Oh.
She turned 34. Also on the 20th, we have Lauren Ambrose, played Jilly Kitzinger in Torchwood Series 4, turned 46. Also on the 20th, we have Anthony Head, who played Lord Valentine in Death Comes to Time and Mr. Finch in School Reunion, better known as Rupert Giles from Buffy, turned 70. Also known for being in Repo the Genetic Opera. Also, finally on the 20th, we have Ian Scoons, visual effects designer for 6 serials between 1970 and 1979. Realizing there's no age in that listed for that one.
Oh, my apologies. Are you already looking it up, or?
Trying to.
So he would have been 84, except died in January of 2010.
Mm.
So happy birthday to Matt, Simon, Michael, Christopher, Jeremy, Kevin, Jack, Philip, Angeli, Lauren, Anthony, and Ian.
All right, that brings us on to our Doctor Who episode news. And a bit of extra information has been found as the script for The Church on Ruby Road, as well as the novelization, have become public. This one line by the Doctor kind of zeroes in on the relationship between the Giggle and everything else that's going on in the RTD2 era. So the Doctor says, there was an incursion into this world. Do you know the Giggle when everyone went mad? That was caused by a drastic transgression known as the Toymaker, and he brought his legions with him. This is his legacy. Forces of nature, but forces of a different nature. Writing their own rules, and I'm out of my depth. Got no rules. I love, love, love the rules. So basically, the whole idea of the RTD2 era being a lot more magical and fantastical than is typical, at least that's how they've been kind of building it up, is this is all basically the aftermath of the Toymaker entering into the regular universe and bringing with him all of these beings that don't follow normal universe physics.
Hmm.
And yeah, they include the line about the salt, which I still think is the Doctor speculating. But
Mm.
either way, we've already seen that line. All right, moving on from there, we have a new release by Demon Records. This is in to mark Record Store Day 2024, which I wasn't aware there was a Record Store Day, but I guess I'm not too surprised. They are releasing the complete narrated TV soundtrack of The Edge of Destruction. So this is making its debut in any format it says, because it includes linking narration by Carol Ann Ford. So I guess it's the episode audio plus Susan narrating what the things that you can't see.
I believe
Mm.
I'm aware there's a record store day, but it's become less prevalent as a lot of record stores have suddenly gone up in smoke over the
Yeah.
last 10 years.
I mean, none of them called themselves Record Store Day when I ever went to them. I mean, called themselves record stores when I ever went to them.
Exclusive company, I miss you. You can actually find music there.
Ah.
Then they
They
basically big
also
switched
know.
off to half DVDs and then just kind of slowly died.
They also note that this year is the 60th anniversary of that story,
Mm.
which was broadcast on the 8th and 15th of February. Although the release itself will not be until 420 of this year, which is apparently 420 is Record Store Day. Okay, so usually people are too busy on 420 to be focusing on records unless they use those records with their designated 420 activities. Although I guess they don't call it 420 in the UK, would they? Moving on.
Depends.
Yep. We have our big finish releases. On the 15th, we had the 11th Doctor Chronicles Victory of the Doctor, written by John Dorney, Felicia Baker, and Elfie Shaw, starring Jacob Dudman and Sophia Inger. On the 16th, we had Ninth Doctor Adventures Buried Threats. They wanted to make sure that we didn't run out of Ninth Doctor stories to review. Written by Lisa McMullen, Mark Wright, and Matt Fitton, starring Christopher Eccleston and Lisa Bowerman. This will be the third canonical Doctor that Bernice Summerfield has had stories with. At least the fourth Doctor on audio, I'm pretty sure. But one of those was not canonical, if I remember. If at least if it, yeah. But she definitely traveled with the seventh and eighth Doctors, and now she's traveling with the ninth. So, be interesting to see that reunion. And on today, we had the release of Master Planet Doom, written by Robert Whitelock, Barnaby Kay, and Robert Valentine, starring Eric Roberts and Chase Masterton. And I forget who Chase Masterton plays, but I know that name, or Masterson, sorry. That name looks like it is some sort of code name or secret identity of the Master, even though I know it shouldn't be.
Right. Well, I'm assuming she's playing the blonde woman on the cover.
Hmm.
I don't know who that character is, but that's what my assumption is. Also, have
Makes
you
sense.
taken a good look at that cover? Did you notice what's going on the right-hand side there? It looks like a golden version of the Doctor. 'Cause
Huh.
that's clearly the Eighth Doctor, but he's all gold.
I Yeah, I might not have made that connection on my own, but yeah, it kind of makes sense. It also looks like a police box surrounded by gold right nearby.
Uh, I will
I was
say
showing
this
myself,
much.
yeah.
Apparently, she's one of those uh, actors who is like one role away from getting the hat trick because she has done previous seeming Big Finish work.
Mm.
She is a voice of, I think that says Lita in Star Trek Lower Decks, and it was apparently in something called Star Trek of Gods and Men. Uh, so all she's missing is Star Wars.
Gotcha. All right, moving from there, we actually have Big Finish news worth talking about. First off, Big Finish has announced a 24-part audio series named Dark Gallifrey, focusing on Time Lord villains. So these are uh, rogue Time Lords, or presumably mostly or all rogue, that are, opposed to the Doctor, including Morbius, uh, and at least three incarnations of the Master. So that obviously is not 24 names, so I'm sure there's more yet to be announced. Cult has some speculation, but
Mm-hmm.
that it does sound like an interesting series to follow. Um, but that's all we know about it so far. Is there? I just accidentally clicked the link. Um, I'm not seeing a release date on a quick skim. Oh, here we go. So it'll start with a trilogy of Morbius stories this April, and is going to be continuing all the way through 2027 in trilogies.
Hmm. So 3-story releases, yeah.
Uh, our next bit of Big Finish news is that to mark 25 years of Doctor Who stories, Big Finish is going to basically be taking previously released stories and releasing them in podcast format. So this will be a good way to access stories that were previously only available if you paid for them, and now listen to them for free. So this is Into the TARDIS, and will begin in March, starting with the story Death and the Queen, which was a 2016 10th Doctor adventure, which I think we've reviewed. Kind of surprised they're starting with something so recent, so I'm not sure what is going to be, what the overall output is going to be. But I imagine it's going to be a good way to get some stories that aren't already available for free without needing to pay full price for them. So that's nice.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And that is the end of our news.
Okie doke.
And
So it's
since
very
we have,
very quickly, since we have plenty of time, I'm just realizing I probably should have like scrolled the other way when I was reading through Chase Masterson's uh filmography. The character that she's playing in Lower Decks is just her reprising a role she did in Deep Space Nine.
ah,
Wah, wah, wah.
yeah, that seems a
Actually,
little
I
more high profile than Lower Decks.
actually I think even Deep Space Nine was a return to that character. I believe when I was looking her up earlier, it said she was in Next Gen.
Ah,
Yeah.
Either way, she was part of the '90s truck run.
yeah.
Who got the stopwatch ready?
Although, yeah, oh, yep. Yes. So it's time for the summary and ready for a countdown.
Yep.
Okay, three, two, one, go.
All right. The story starts off with a scientist talking into a recorder, talking about how he's finally found results and possibly getting a sound manipulator to work in the way that he wants it to, and that it can be focused to possibly do things to people. He is also noting his nervousness as to what this item will actually be used for before someone, without speaking, walks into the room and apparently starts to attack the man before the recording suddenly stops. We then hear his voice again as he apparently shows up at a woman's doorstep, completely blank of memory and just afraid for his life. She lets him in, and we fade to Sarah Jane, and I can't think of his name now. I just had it. It was with a G. Uh, anyways, Sarah Jane and her usual companion are on an airplane to go meet an old friend of hers who also used to be a reporter and, much like herself, got maligned. after getting too much info people didn't want to hear about, and decided to run off to Romania to hide away and just kind of live life for a while on the down low. Getting there after apparently a rough taxi ride, they're treated to the man who is now a butler and are welcomed to their rooms, given a relatively decent meal, and then finally sit down for the night. This is when Sarah Jane has an encounter with unusual sounds and a blinding white light that scares the ever-loving crud out of her. But outside of leaving her stunned and shooken for several hours, it does not actually kill her. The others aren't sure what to believe about it, but obviously she saw something that evening. She decides to help alleviate her mind that she was going to go into town and just start to kind of have a look around and meet the locals. And also, there's supposed to be a local ongoing peace meeting going on between different heads of all the governments around the world that they're trying to push for some decent changes. And things, at least at the moment, seem to be going relatively well with the meetings. That is until after the next attempt, which when Sarah Jane and crew return, after she also meets a very well-behaved, I believe, British gentleman at the museum, she finally returns back to her friend's place to meet the Americans she invited over that are apparently a couple hills over. They have another meal, a lovely evening talking together, walking the grounds, etc. And by about 3 in the morning, they finally depart. The others heading back to their rooms as well, just in time for the exact same time at 3 in the evening for Sarah Jane to at least witness a bit of what she had seen the night before. But however, the woman of the American couple does not get as lucky as Sarah Jane, as she is literally scared to death. Her eyes wide open and her hair having gone completely white as an after effect before her death. The man shows up relatively shocked. They let him sit down, take a deep breath, and even treat him to some drinks to help alleviate his stress. He was part of the peace talks for America, and so things have already kind of started to go astray. But when they visit the tavern again, they start to realize more people are seeing more of the same thing and not sure what's going on. To which Sarah decides that's enough of it and sets up a huge amount of recording equipment to try and capture whatever it is that's going around, attacking people at night. The event happens again, but this time both of the others see it, but are stunned to see it just suddenly vanish. It also destroyed the equipment on the way out, but the tapes, however, still survived, so they're getting more equipment. While they're doing so, Sarah Jane goes into some further investigation because the butler, who was a scientist, had just finally remembered who he was and what was happening before someone shot him. No one heard the shot because of the ongoing noise so forth from the ghost that was going on. Taking the little bit of information they had, they managed to find a local university, find out that he was the scientist there, find out he was working on a secret project, and head back. They check the tapes, and sure enough, nothing is there, just everyone freaking out over nothing. To which Sarah goes to her planned date with the lovely British man, but she also noticed that he had a particular initials on his business card which linked him to the project that was going on. That's part of the sound device. When she snoops around the room for a little while, once he's out to get something to drink, she finds the recording from the doctor, and luckily her companion happened to be lingering outside, and they help disarm the man and stop him, and I assume have him arrested, and in the morning give their apologies and thanks for understanding to the American man who has to now return home and sort things out, as they have to send someone else now for the peace talks. And that is that. I ran all along. Hello?
I muted myself because I was coughing, and then I never unmuted myself. But give or take a few seconds at the beginning, because I There was a pause before you started talking. I have 5 minutes 42 seconds.
I have 5:40,
Hmm.
like just in the edge of. So roughly around there. Yeah, it ran a little bit long. There's a lot of back and forth in this episode, which is
Hmm.
pretty good for it only an hour long.
Which is probably why some of the details you and I talked about before the podcast kind of went over my head on.
Yeah, apparently Bill here thought the American guy was the British gentleman guy who was trying to set up Sarah Jane for the death for a few scenes for whatever reason. I don't know. I kept it straight. I don't know.
All right, moving on to our review through the pecking order. Matt, what did you like about this story?
What I like about this story, I like that it's a proper mystery and that we're sure that there's something afoot, but we're not sure entirely what and how they're doing it. We're not entirely sure who and how they're doing it. Although I suppose, given the number of people in the story, there's not very much many options for the potential evildoer. But it generally feels like a more interesting, possibly almost supernatural threat to you, of course, but taking in the fact that someone's got to have this device, but how do you find them and how do you backwards figure out where they're at?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a murder mystery with a limited cast is can be challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, we're pretty sure it's not Sarah Jane. We're pretty sure it's not Josh. So that's 25% of the possible suspects
Josh.
gone already.
J not G. That's half my issue.
Ah,
But and while it's usually a cliche thing, they already set up that the butler didn't do it.
right. All right, Alex, what did you like about this story?
um, I guess I'll go with like a critique I've had of some, but not all of these is that like, and again, maybe it's a matter of just being far too used to Sarah Jane adventures that sometimes the tone of these feels like dark for the sake of being dark kind of thing. Whereas this one felt like a better tone to hit. Like there's sort of some dark stuff going on, but it doesn't feel like overly ooh, we're trying to be edgy or whatever crap.
Hmm.
Like at least one or two
Yeah, it wasn't as bad
of
as a
these
couple of the
kind
other
of
previous
felt.
ones where we've been like, "Oh, please, Lord,
Mm,
don't just stop."
yeah. Like I could legitimately buy this being an episode of TV
Mm-hmm.
and it not
Okay.
feeling out of place. Um, Obviously with a lot of tweaking because it's an audio, but
Yeah.
um, I could see this like fitting in with like a normal Doctor Who tone and not being at least modern Who anyway, and not being too out there.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Okay, I think I'm going to say I like the fact that it's not targeted at Sarah Jane. Like I feel like
Mm.
Mm. Yeah.
by the most recent story, it was just it seemed less like this like evil organization was out to do anything in the world, and more like they were like, our goal is to fuck up Sarah Jane's life. And this really had nothing to do with Sarah Jane, other than the fact that she was there to figure it out and stop it. And it's yeah, kind of nice that the problems are not being caused by the presence of the hero. It's
In fact,
all
she
right.
was called in
Yep.
indirectly by her friend to come and solve it.
Yes, and I was so much and I don't know if this is going to tread on anyone's scenes, but I was so much expecting her to get like the way she was talking about her friend before and how much she was talking about it being a vacation. I was really expecting her to like immediately arrive and be like, So obviously, I lured you here using coded language that you would obviously recognize, and that you must know there's a major problem here. That's not what happened, actually, but I was expecting
Mm,
it.
yeah. Still
All
very
right.
in line with a Doctor Who
Mhm.
sensibility of we're actually trying to have like a break from this stuff, and then shit goes down anyway.
Yep. And you can't even blame the TARDIS.
Mm.
All right. What do we dislike about the story? Starting with Matt.
Hmm. Well, I do agree that it's nice to no longer have Sarah Jane being the main center reason why everything happens. I do feel like the villain was kind of lacking in this episode, though. Like,
Mm.
what was his real intent and purpose other than to mess with the peace meetings for no darn good discernible reason?
I think it's
Okay.
revealed in a
Like,
later
like,
story.
he's
I
literally
mean
just
that.
sitting there twirling his mustache, and being whipped. Being I forget his name now. Something Whiplash from the old
Oh,
Hamburg.
Snidely
Snidely
Whiplash.
Whiplash.
Snidely Whiplash, and just twirling his mustache for no reason. It's like, okay,
So
just out of nowhere.
okay. So I could kind of get what you're saying there. I do think that it's, I mean, there are so many ways to make money in a war that I could absolutely 1,000% be like, oh, he's here for his shadowy overlords to sabotage the peace talks so that peace doesn't happen. I
He,
don't know.
he's
I'm
here to
not
help
entirely
push
sure
for
what
the
the
warlords. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
but I mean, like, he could work for Boeing. He could work for somebody who's any Purdue Pharmaceutical,
Mhm.
which I think yeah, one of the companies they dealt with I think was pharmaceutical company, right? But
Mm-hmm.
anybody who sells things to the military makes a lot more money when there's violence than when
Mm.
there's peace. So I absolutely believed
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
like I feel like I accidentally found out that this does come back, sort of. At least
Okay.
this,
At
what
least they'll
happened with
maybe
this
eventually
entire
clear
single
that up
story.
and give some actual reasoning. But for a standalone episode, it's like, huh, that's kind of a
Mm.
lame villain. Just kind of just came out of nowhere and went, surprise! I was the red herring all along because there's only like two other people in this story. Yes, I'm the villain. What reason do I have to do
right.
this? Who
I'll
cares?
add
Kill
on
you
to
now.
that. I'll add on to
Yeah.
that. Yeah, apparently he asked her out, and that is what led to his downfall.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's sloppy.
that. Yeah,
Mm.
that's some dumb moves.
Yeah. And I guess jumping off that, uh, mine is kind of just that he felt a bit too obvious as the villain.
Again, there's only like
Like
three
I
characters.
feel like I feel like the first scene he shows up, I'm like, well, he's the villain. Like
Oh, but it might be the
process of
Americans.
elimination,
Nah, they came in
like
too late. They're just cannon
yeah,
fodder.
like maybe like I mean maybe they could have twisted and it would have been Yolanda, but that would have been also that almost would have been too much more obvious to do that. So um like it was like, well, if it's not her, then it's him because
Right.
like he just kind of randomly the token Brit otherwise to to be in this story who just happens to bump into Sarah Jane. It's like, okay, and
Yeah.
knows her by name already, and it's like,
Ah, my
okay, yeah,
nemesis. I
something's
must
up.
invite you to a date. So you could curse my inevitable but obvious betrayal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that goes into this is not a great cast size for a murder mystery, and we
Hmm.
have the main character, her companion, the person who called her in. We have the one off guy that she asks when she's investigating. The
Hmm.
woman who died, the woman who died's husband, and then the big bad.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh, you
there's
forgot the
not a
scientist
huge.
who was already pre-set up not to be the villain.
Oh, but he's not on the
Mm.
cast list. So you already know that he's not the villain. Like he's a small enough role that they didn't get a unique actor to play him, and he's probably just played by somebody else.
Mm.
Be nice if they would have said who.
Right. So it's on to me then, right?
Yep.
Yep.
So I'm going to say this kind of ties into the whole thing, but in the last story, we had this whole like escalation of the big bad, right? We brought in the new lady
Mm.
who's like she's going to put an end to this shit because the people before her were incompetent or whatever, or at least that's what
Mm.
she was going to think. And here it's like it's a de-escalation. We see no explicit
Yeah.
like we have this vague reference to like the people I work for don't want peace to happen. And because
Mm.
it's the Sarah Jane Smith series, we can probably guess that it's the same people that everybody
Maybe,
else has
yeah.
been working for the
Yeah.
rest of the series. But that's it, right? It doesn't really escalate in
Mm.
any way. Again, it like we've been talking about, it's not more difficult to solve in any way. Like this could have been the first or second story of the series, and it wouldn't have made any difference.
Yeah. Like,
So it's really weird. Immediately following an escalation of the big bad.
yeah. From what I can tell, like the second last track of the audio is like a preview of. I'm not sure if it's like just the next story or if it's like
Like the next
in
two, maybe, or
general.
the next half of
The
this,
Yeah.
because the
the
set is a
next
2-in-1 set.
the
So,
next story is
Mm.
the season finale.
Yeah. So
oh,
It's a
so
5-part
maybe it's a
season.
teaser to
by
the
the
season
sound,
finale.
yeah, by the sounds of it, the evil organization group come back in the finale. So maybe this was supposed to be kind of like calm down before ratcheting back up.
Yeah, they calm down before everything just goes through the roof.
Which, yeah, I think that's just misplaced.
Mm.
Yeah, it should have just been earlier in the season, before they became more notorious for constantly coming after her.
Right. I mean, it's also it was timed this way specifically so that Sadie Miller could like go record something else or something. But like
Mm.
they have power over their own release schedule, so I don't think
Yeah.
that is a valid excuse.
Yeah, I don't think that's a
Yeah.
valid excuse. They could have rearranged this very easily.
Especially since she wasn't in she wasn't in the very first episode. So if they had rearranged things, it would have fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, favorite scenes, Matt.
Favorite scene. Um, I guess I'm going to go with. Actually, this one kind of surprised me. I'm gonna go with the checking the evidence on the tape, because I was expecting the big reveal to be whoever the big bad was gonna be. I'm sitting here going, yes, okay, so we're gonna see the tape and we're gonna see actually who the big bad is, because they no longer have the ghost hiding it, because the ghost imagery was caused by whatever sound effect thing was causing people to be horrified, and there's nobody. Never mind. Oh,
Yeah.
well, okay. How the heck do we go from here? I'm intrigued, but I'm also very confused.
And it's kind of like Sarah Jane's eureka moment of, oh, this was a kind of a side thing to disguise the actual murders.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
More, well, they are the actual murders, but there seems to be bit of an issue of trying to get rid of Sarah, which they do explain at the very end, which is that the area just has pretty poor signal reception. So they couldn't get the def signal to be strong enough to get her. Which is why the guy had to show up in the meantime again as well to go and shoot the butler / scientist.
Mm.
And would have been the only one killed with a gunshot.
Yeah.
A wee bit awkward. But yeah, that was a pretty good the mystery deepens moment for me. So it's like, okay, where are we going with this?
Mm.
And apparently she did have an idea already in mind, and it was the right assumption. Um, did Bill AFK on us again?
Nope.
Okay.
I was just letting you finish because every time I thought you were done, you had more to say. So I was waiting for you
And
to
I was waiting for you,
just
so I'm
tell
like,
Alex to go on your own.
okay.
We're not short on time, so I don't need to rush you along.
Mm.
So
I
yeah,
was gonna
Alex,
say we haven't even gone a full hour yet.
close to it.
Uh, ooh, I had one in mind, then I changed my mind, so I'll go with the second one. The bit where they're Sarah and Josh are walking to the village, and they're like, and Sarah Jane's just like, it's 3 miles to the nearest pub, and he's just, and Josh is just like overly, like mockingly dramatically, just like, oh, leave me here.
I'm done for.
Like,
Tell the others to go
just
on
yeah,
without me. Oh.
yeah, yeah. Just like, and they're like, oh, have you ever thought about taking up acting? Well, no, don't. It's like fun little banter between the two. I feel like if that moment was like Josh, like just complaining rather than like being mockingly dramatic, then that probably would have been like a least favorite. But because it's very clear he's just taking the piss out of himself,
Mm.
um, it just turns around to being funny instead.
It definitely helps him from being completely one note.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So do I have a favorite scene that hasn't been taken in this story? Um, Maybe if I was a little less tired, I would come up with something. Yeah, I don't I like that's another indication that I'm probably fighting something off. I slept 15 hours last night, and I'm still like fighting to do this podcast, but I'm gonna pass on favorite scene,
All right.
which brings us to least favorite scenes. Matt.
The most obvious of moments for the main villain. How are the peace talks going? Oh, they're doing great. Really? I thought I overheard that things were getting a bit complicated. How about I go get us some more drinks? Like, every red flag and freaking siren wail is going off right there, and it's just like, really, my dude? You couldn't, like, try to come up with something to say after that, and you just immediately turn into drinks. Was this literally your one chance to see if she'll start snooping? Just again, this particular villain is not particularly written well when he starts doing villainy things.
Yeah.
He would have been better off as a red herring, and we would have just had somebody in the background pop out and go, "Aha!" That's my bad scene.
Okay, Alex.
Um, I guess sticking with the villain, in a way, I was almost potentially gonna go on with this for a favorite, but then like actually thinking about it, it's like, wait a minute. So Sarah Jane initially is like almost sounds like she overlooks that the guy calls her by name, but then immediately like follows on with like, and how did you know my name? So that's like, okay, that's good that she didn't kind of skim over that. If it was visual, maybe you could just have her kind of clock it but not mention it, but you know. But then it's like she otherwise is not really suspicious of him again. I don't think, and it's like for someone who keeps like they keep bringing up as like, God, you're paranoid, like all
Right.
story. It's like it's kind of odd that she would go from hang on, how do you know my name to like basically never finding him suspicious, and it's always Josh that's like, I don't like him. There's something off about him. And Sarah Jane being the one that's like, oh, you're overthinking it. Like, he knew your
Hmm.
name before even meeting you. Like, as much as yeah, you can use the excuse of like, well, she was a journalist. She wasn't like a world famous journalist. She was a journalist that got around, but she's not like particularly notorious. So it's a bit
I feel
weird
like
that
in the
she
first
wouldn't
couple of
be.
stories, everybody recognized her name.
Oh, to be fair, that was within the UK, but even then, like, I
Mm.
think that was more just because of the recent, like, God, it's been a while since I've listened to the earlier ones, but there was like some big thing that happened.
She had
Um,
shortly before leaving her last job, she had done a series of like investigative documentaries exposing people.
that was it. So like, there is that, but also it's like, given that she was a bit iffy because he knew her name, it's like without having met her, it's like either you just play it off as well, she, was a TV personality. So there's that. But also, I don't know. It just feels, I guess it's just because, like, the implication of that and, like, probably later scenes where Josh is like, I don't trust him. But she's the one who's like, oh, no, he's fine. It's like, eh. It just seems a bit weird that she's not the one being cautious of people she doesn't really
Hmm.
know, given like the everything about her as a character,
Hmm.
really.
Yeah.
I do feel like this is a recurring issue where she's paranoid when, in random scenes and everyone complains that she's paranoid. And that, or at least everyone complains that she's paranoid, like regardless of
Yeah.
the how the other scenes are. And then like she just goes off completely naively when the plot calls for it.
Hmm. Which like
Mm.
works a bit better when she's like the companion role, but not so much when she's the lead.
Hmm.
Like Josh should not be more paranoid than she is, really. He should be the one who's a bit more aloof.
Hmm. So I'm going to say I don't know which of these two scenes is my least favorite, but they kind of interplay with each other in kind of like an Ouroboros loop. Because you have the one scene, uh, it must, I guess, yeah, it's like the second or like the second morning, where she's like, "Oh, don't! How dare you tell me you don't believe in ghosts? I know what I saw." And then I think this is only supposed to be like a few hours later, and then she's like, "Well, obviously I knew something was wrong because I don't believe in ghosts." And I'm like, "God damn it, Sarah Jane! We're supposed to like you, and you're just not making me like you." And yeah, that's my least favorite.
Hmm.
All right,
Good.
final thoughts.
Final thoughts. The mood and setting for this one was a lot more even keel and a lot more what I would hope to be representative of this particular storyline for Sarah Jane. Going too, as lacking of a better word, edgy with it does not appeal to people. But I definitely like a good murder mystery. Maybe just have a few more cast members next time. Have some more cannon fodder. Keep us guessing. Um, Other than that, otherwise, I think the voice acting was really good. The music is starting to catch on to me. I've suddenly realized what it is now. I think it sounds a lot like the music from the Thief franchise, at least the first three. Has a lot of similar mid to late '90s musicianship behind it. Um, Other than that, otherwise a pretty solid story too. I just wish that they had polished off the villain a little bit better and done something a little bit more with the more made it more interesting. Something I don't know, but
Mm.
otherwise just a few little flaws. Another round of cooking would have maybe fixed that. Just a thought, but getting a little bit better. Alex.
Yeah, it might be because I was like distracted somewhat both times I was listening to it, but I'm realizing that certain things didn't really stick in my head with this story, and it might have just been that as a result, I either had a harder time paying attention because maybe it just wasn't gripping me as much, or just I picked bad times to listen to it.
Mm.
It was being a bit distracted. Um, yeah, like it's not bad by any stretch. Again, it's not as like trying too hard to be dark as a lot of the well, I say a lot, as some of the ones we've had prior. Um, the cast are doing a good job. Like any issues we seem to have all seem to really be writing related.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I mean, kind of standard for Doctor Who, really. Um, but yeah, the thing is, this one where it's like it almost kind of would have been better if, and like cliche as it is, if they just been kind of like snowed into that house. Um, and like maybe it was after Yolanda like had thrown like this massive extravagant party or something. I'm like maybe not extravagant, but like have it be like she's throwing a party and then the murders start happening and everyone's like snowed in or whatever so they can't go anywhere, so it's that kind of a murder mystery. So you've got like, even if it's not like a gigantic cast, it's like a bigger cast, and like the villain could have just been a guest, who like maybe he's like, oh damn it, I need to go to that thing, but whatever. But like it's just something like that could have worked a bit better.
I think it
But
should have been more of a stereotypical murder mystery.
yeah, like even if we still have like the sort of fake out ghost stuff, you could still make that work. um but yeah, in any case, I still think this is like good, but just yeah, just kind of stops itself from being great effectively. And that's all for me.
And oh yes, I'm after you. I was thinking there was
Hmm.
somebody in between, but there's no more people. So yeah, as I think about it, the more I feel like a conference to cause world peace happening randomly in Romania with a very small cast of people and no explanation of what's going on is, yeah, it's a little on the sloppy side. Um it's a decent pitch, but it definitely needs more work. At this stage, I'm guessing there's a budget issue. They couldn't afford a much larger cast, but the rest of the series made that work. And I
Mm.
think they may have been a little overambitious with this and tried for a story that the cast size could not handle. It's not a terrible story by any means, but it is a story with plenty of holes. That it really feels hampered by the length and in a way that the other, at least to my memory, and you are right, it's been a little while since we covered the first three, but I don't feel like those were hampered by the length in the same way I feel like this one was. Um, Specifically, the way that the climax seemed rushed, and it's just, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go through his files, and oh yeah, we caught each other. and now Sarah Jane wins because plot armor. So, while this is definitely not the worst story I've listened to, watched, whatever you want to call it, it's definitely not very high up there either. It's yeah, closer to the middling or low middle maybe. Um, which as others have mentioned, the acting is definitely not any of the flaws here. These are at the quality level we'd expect, but the story could have used some more. And that's it for my thoughts. Ratings.
Alrighty. I'm thinking on settling this one with a 4. Like I said, it could have used a little more bacon in the
4.0.
oven. Yep, 4.0.
Okay.
A little more rewritten.
Alex.
Yeah, I'm pretty much gonna agree with that. I think it's like the acting is enough to bring it up to a 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. With the amount of criticisms we all had for the story, I feel like yeah, I'm like the acting keeps it from being a 3.0. But I think I'm gonna have to give it a 3.5.
Mm. Okay.
Which brings us to an average of 3.83, which places this story at between 257 and 261 out of 460 things reviewed. It is on par with No Big Finish stories. Um, it is yeah, The Keeper of Traken, Boomtown, Ghostlight, and The Faceless Ones, which are all various eras of live action. It is not as good as the Jago and Lightfoot revival, The Condemned, Technophobia, or The Tao Connection, which was the previous story. It is better than Sixth Doctor, The Last Adventure of the Red House, Master, War Doctor, The Innocent, and Fourth Doctor Adventures, The Evil One. So that is all we have to say about Ghost Town. Don't forget to let us know in the comments what you thought of this week's story. And since you've watched the video this far, don't forget to click like. I was saying different parts of that sentence in the wrong order. And subscribe on YouTube to get our exports, or follow us on Twitch to get notified when we stream. Next week, I think I apparently seem to have closed the.
Next week is some more Sarah Jane.
Oh no, that's wrong. Oh, here we go. Next week we will be continuing Sarah Jane with Sarah Jane Smith. Mirror Signal Maneuver, at least that's how I would pronounce it if it were spelled in the American way. I'm assuming if you spell it in the French way, it's still pronounced maneuver. Written by Peter Engelides. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And starring Elisabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith and Jez Fielder as Josh Townsend. We'll see you then.
Good night.